Nora Callahan is 29 the morning she leaves Cleveland. She loads one canvas bag into the red leather seat of her Curved Dash Runabout, serial number 218 of the 425, built the year before, and does not go back inside. It is April 1902 and the road west is 60 miles of mud before it gets any better. The Curved Dash Runabout is the first automobile built in America in significant numbers. Its single-cylinder fires beneath the curved apron of the dash, pushing the machine forward at speeds that still make grown men step back from the roadside. Ransom Olds built 425 of them in 1901. Nobody had believed he could build one. Cleveland in 1902 is a city of foundries and arranged futures. Nora's father, Declan Callahan, has run a blacksmith shop on Prospect Avenue for 22 years. His mind is equally certain about what daughters are meant for, and it is not driving west alone in a machine that sounds like a mechanical bee. Declan Callahan's position on the automobile is simple. It is a novelty that will not outlast the decade. He has said this at his workbench, while at the dinner table, and at Sunday Mass. He says it louder now that Nora has bought one with 3 years of her own wages. Patrick Doyle is 41, widowed, and runs the hardware concern on Superior Avenue. He has been coming to Sunday dinners for 4 months. He is not unkind. He has never once looked at Nora as though she were a person with a direction of her own to travel. She found the car through a notice in the Cleveland Plain Dealer. A widow in Shaker Heights selling her late husband's 1901 Runabout, barely driven. By the engine sound, the widow showed her the crank. Nora pulled it herself to hear the cylinder catch. The sound was a decision. She had been saving for 3 years without a name for what she was saving toward. Telegraph wages from the Western Union office on St. Clair. A little from the evening lessons she gave to merchant families. The envelope held $180 in April, and she counted it twice. The widow's name was Harriet Bauer. She folded the cash envelope into her apron without counting it and pressed Nora's hand once, and said nothing. Serial number 218 was stamped into the iron of the frame, one of 425 cars that proved the impossible thing possible. The engine starts with 4 pulls of the crank on a cold morning. It makes a sound unlike anything that has lived in a stable. A fast, even percussion, purposeful and slightly threatening. She warms it 3 minutes and shifts the lever to go. Declan Callahan stands in the doorway of his shop and watches her pull into Prospect Avenue. He does not call out. She does not look back after the first corner, not because she is certain, but because certainty is not the point. The first 5 miles are a negotiation. Horse carts slow and their drivers curse without real anger. The way men curse at weather they cannot change. The road surface shifts every quarter mile, cobblestone to packed dirt to mud, and the curved dash takes each transition with a steadiness that begins to feel deliberate. West of Cleveland, the road opens into flat gray fields, breaking their winter crust. The single cylinder beneath the dash settles into a rhythm she is beginning to learn, a rhythm that says, still running, she's still running. She begins to believe it means something more than mechanics. She is 20 miles west of Cleveland when the road forks at an unmarked crossroads. Both directions go west. One is wider. She takes the narrower one. Before we follow Nora any further, if this is the kind of story you have been looking for, subscribe to the channel. Every video here is built around a real car, a real road, and a life that changed somewhere on the asphalt. No filler. If that matters to you, the subscribe button is how you tell us. And leave a comment. Have you ever driven a road where you had to choose between the route that was easier and the one that actually went somewhere? Now, back to Nora. She and the narrower road. Outside Elyria, she stops at the livery stable to water the engine's cooling tank and stretch her back against 40 miles of tiller vibration. 3 men walk out from the stable and stand around the curved dash without speaking. One touches the brass headlamp. She asks him politely not to. He removes his hand. The single-cylinder engine of the curved dash produces what Ransom Olds engineers rated at 4.5 horsepower. On flat Ohio hardpack, this is enough to hold 20 miles per hour. On mud, it becomes a conversation between the machine and the earth, and the machine does not always win. Ohio west of Elyria is flat and gives nothing away. The road is a single lane of intention lined with fence posts and bare trees. Farmhouses appear at long intervals and their occupants come to the porch to watch the curved dash pass, always with the same expression, not hostile, not welcoming, or simply amazed. She makes camp the first night near a fence line in Huron County. She drapes her coat over the seat to protect the leather from dew and wraps herself in the second coat. The stars above Ohio are clear and indifferent. She sleeps 4 hours and wakes before dawn. The crank on a cold April morning requires patience. 8 pulls before the cylinder catches, a sound that fills the empty road like a shout in a church. She runs at 4 minutes before touching the tiller. The road ahead is lighter than it was, or she has decided that it is, which amounts to the same thing. Near Sandusky, the road improves briefly. Compressed gravel, a flatter grade, wind off Lake Erie from the northwest, and cold enough to make the collar necessary. The curved dash pushes into it without complaint. The tiller vibrates steadily in her gloved hands. This is what 4.5 horsepower feels like when the road agrees. She is 3 miles east of Bellevue when the drive chain begins to skip, a sound she feels through the seat before she hears it. She pulls over, crouches beside the rear wheel in the mud, and works the chain back onto its sprocket with bare hands. 11 minutes. Her hands come away black. A farmer on a harrow rig sits at the field's edge and watches without approaching. He cannot make what he sees fit anything he already knows. A woman in a navy dress, a machine in the road, her hands in the mechanism. None of the pieces go together in any world he has lived in until this one. His wife appears at the fence line 10 minutes later. The chain sounds smooth again. She holds out a bundle wrapped in cloth. Bread, still warm. Nora takes it at the tiller without stopping, eats it moving, and does not stop for 40 more miles. The Indiana line is a sign nailed to a post at a dirt crossroads. Nothing changes when she crosses it. Same flat field, same cold sky, same mud going west. But she is now driven farther from Cleveland than she has ever been in her life, and the road behind her is longer than the road ahead. Indiana roads in April 1902 hold water the way Ohio roads do not. The ruts run a foot deep in the low sections. Nora learns to steer into the rut rather than fight it, a different grammar of the road than anything she has practiced. But the curved dash already knows it. Outside Goshen, a Percheron team rounds a bend and meets the curved dash in the road. Large, frightened animals do what they always do. They go sideways, then everywhere. The driver fights them into the ditch. No one is hurt. She drives past them carefully and offers nothing that looks like speed. The driver follows her on foot for 40 yards, calling things into her back. Then he stops. He goes back to his horses. She has learned that anger is loudest when it has nowhere specific to arrive. And she has not given it a destination. Fort Wayne appears at dusk on the second full day of driving. A skyline low against a yellow evening, church steeples and a water tower and the smell of the street. Mary's River. She parks the curved dash at the curb of the Wayne Hotel on Berry Street. The desk clerk studies her for a long moment before handing over the key. The innkeeper's daughter is 16 and comes out after supper to stand near the curved dash and study it. Nora waves her over. The girl runs her hand along the brass headlamp and asks what the curved part in front is called. She weighs the answer like the most important fact she has encountered in months. In her hotel room, she writes in her journal by lamplight. She does not write about the road. She writes about her father's hands, the specific weight of them on a door frame. She writes about Patrick Doyle's collar, always too high. She closes the journal and sleeps 8 hours without moving. Fort Wayne at 5 in the morning is quiet except for milk wagons. She cranks the curved dash on Berry Street in the dark and does not care who she wakes. Chicago is 150 miles west. The road from here has been waiting its whole life to be driven by someone who means it. By mid-morning of the third day, she has stopped listening to the engine against expectation. She knows what it sounds like when everything is right. The single cylinder fires with the regularity of something properly wound. And the chain turns, and the wheels take the road, and the road goes west. Indiana west of Fort Wayne opens into a flatness without eastern equivalent. The sky is a full dome from field line to field line. The curved dash is a small black object moving through it, and Nora finds this exactly correct. The scale of the landscape matching what the journey feels like from the inside. The town of Rensselaer has a main street and two men outside a hardware store who watch her pass and then step into the road behind her and watch until she is gone. She reads what they say to each other from the posture of their shoulders. The way she once read weather and telegraph line static. She does not stop in Rensselaer. She does not stop for 30 miles. The tiller vibrates. The chain runs. The town gets smaller behind her, and this is what she came for. Not Chicago, but the accumulation itself. The miles between herself and everything that had a name for her. The rain arrives in the afternoon of day 3 without warning. A wall of straight Midwestern spring rain that simply means what it says. The road becomes a river. The chain begins to sound wrong. She pulls off under a stand of cottonwood trees and waits. Under the cottonwood, she drapes her driving coat over the engine and sits listening to the rain knock on everything it touches. The red leather seat is damp through. The brass of the headlamp has gone dark with water. The engine beneath the dash ticks as it cools. She thinks about her father in the rain. The specific pitch of his voice when he is certain, a voice without a question mark anywhere in it. She thinks about what it will mean to arrive in Chicago, and whether Chicago will turn out to be another room. She does not resolve this. She lets it sit beside her until the rain stops. The rain stops in 40 minutes. 6 pulls and the engine catches clean. The sound of it in the cleared air after the rain is something she did not expect to feel the way she feels it. She puts it in gear. The Curved Dash moves back onto the road and the road continues west. The Illinois line comes at dusk on the 3rd day. She has driven nearly 300 miles from Cleveland. She passes the Cedar postmarker at 20 miles an hour and does not slow down, and the road takes no notice. Illinois near Chicago has already decided to become something other than farmland. The road surface changes first, gravel, then crushed stone, then a brick-paved section that makes the tiller jump in her hands. She slows to 8 miles an hour and lets the Curved Dash find its path over the brick. Chicago announces itself with smoke before it shows its buildings. The skyline rises from the prairie, steeples and tall brick, and the dirty white haze of a city burning coal on a cold morning. She smells the lake before she sees it. And the smell is nothing like anything she has smelled before. The streets of Chicago are a different order from Ohio mud roads, horse teams, electric streetcars, and 3 other automobiles all compete for the same brick-paved lanes. She follows a streetcar for 6 blocks because it knows where it is going. The noise is comprehensive and beautiful. She parks the Curved Dash on Michigan Avenue 2 blocks from the lake and sits in the seat for 3 minutes without moving. Pedestrians stop to look. A newsboy puts his hand on the tiller as if testing whether it is real. She lets him. Then she shuts the engine down. The lake is gray-green and enormous and cold, and it goes to the horizon without hesitation. She stands beside the car and looks at it. 4 days. Some ago, she was in her father's city, in his expectation, in a future with her name on it but not her face. She is here now. The water doesn't care. That is exactly what she needed. Agnes Sutherland writes for the Tribune under a name that is not her own. She and Nora have been corresponding for 8 months. Letters about the automobile, the road, what it means to go somewhere alone without anyone's permission. Nora carries the address on a folded paper in her coat pocket, worn soft from handling. Agnes Sutherland's house on Dearborn Street is narrow and deep, full of books and paper and the smell of printer's ink. Agnes opens the door before Nora knocks. She has been watching from the window. She is 44, and her face is the face of someone entirely at peace with every difficult decision she has made. The Curved Dash sits at the curb outside, and 3 neighbors find reasons to walk past it in the next hour. Agnes tells Nora over coffee that the Tribune's editor will read a piece about a woman who drove alone from Cleveland to Chicago in April. He needs the woman who drove it to write it herself. Nora does not answer immediately. She drinks her coffee and looks out Agnes's window at the car. Serial number 218, one of 425, built by a man who also believed the impossible thing was worth attempting. She thinks about her father's voice. Then she stops thinking about it. The article runs in the Tribune 6 weeks later under Nora Callahan's full name, the first piece of long-form road writing by a woman in an American daily newspaper. Serial number 218 is driven to a photographer's studio in Lincoln Park for documentation. The photograph shows it clean, brass bright, so still running. The photograph of Nora Callahan beside serial number 218 runs in the Tribune archive for 90 years before anyone thinks to look for it. The car is last documented in Chicago in 1908. Where it went after that, no record survives. The road keeps no ledger. If these road stories are what you want to keep watching, subscribe to the channel. More cars, more roads, more lives live behind a steering wheel that meant something. And if you ever drove a car that made you believe something you could not have believed standing still, tell us in the comments. What car, what road, where it took you? The cars remember everything. So do the people who drove them.